Hi, my name's Brad Young, and welcome to the Peak Performance Podcast. Today's episode 9, Sustainable Training. And so we're going to look at sustainable training methods because, we're looking at being at our peak performance. Part of the issue is injuries. It's a lot of it. A lot of people have injuries, and so we got to figure out sustainable methods. So as we go through all the different aspects of peak performance, so far, if we look at the big picture, we've looked at your hidden strengths. We've made you self-aware. We went through and we've become self-aware of what we're doing and what we're, where we're trying to head. We look at what peak performance means to us. It's a personal thing, what it means to you. My peak performance is different than yours. Everybody's got different goals, different definitions of it. We looked and learned how to unlock your peak performance potential. We looked at the foundations of elite athletic training techniques. And then we looked at the champion's mindset. We also went through the Army combat fitness test, and it's something I'm currently working on training as well to see what my score is going to be because at the end of the day, you want to we want to all operate at our peak performance. So to be able to have sustainable athletic training, that's why we're here today, because it's significantly important. When you think about it, you need to be ready to unlock sustainable athletic training and unleash your full potential because if you operate with fewer and less injuries, you're able to operate at a higher level. Consistency is the key by far. When I look at myself and I go to the gym and I think about it, I've been very consistent for a long time, and it shows. I'm not, I don't look like a professional athlete, but I sure train very similar, and and it's very evident, and so I could tell the differences, and the way I used to train and my approach, and the way I do now, because there's been times I'd have crazy injuries, and I started, trying different approaches and things like that. So that's why I had to go into research. That's why I wrote all these books and give the information out because, it's very important to understand how to train smarter, to be consistent, to avoid burnout, to get a balanced approach because I did all these things wrong. I can remember having shin splints last year. I was training and I had them bad. Come to find out, it wasn't sustainable because I had the wrong shoes. Something as simple as that, you can can just throw you off. I had the wrong shoes, and I had horrible shin splints. Got over that. I got the right shoes and the right methodology and whatnot, and it changed everything. So it changes the whole game. Just training smarter. So that's what we're going to learn today. We're going to go through and look and see the big difference. And I'm going to have a handout that's going to be in the link in the comments and the podcast description that'll give you some of the information from the podcast. So while this one's not going to be as much of you filling it out, it's going to be the information to be able to go through and utilize, what you have, what you've listened to today. It's not going to be everything, so you better listen to the podcast if you want to hear it all. But here we go. So when we dive into this, the foundation, of peak performance currently for me, it's going to be data driven. I know that sounds cliche and it sounds, like, I should probably put it, mental toughness, something like that on there. But no, data driven training. You need to, if you go by the data and how you feel and you track all these aspects of your life, you'll realize your strengths, your weaknesses, and your areas you can grow. Wearable technology like smartwatches, fitness bands, and even smart clothing has revolutionized the way athletes monitor their training. You have devices like the Garmin Forerunner. You have the Whoop strap, which is really, I'm very impressed with. Apple Watch, which, tracks a lot of really good metrics for you. It can tell you so many things, and it's getting more and more involved to where, you can understand heart rate variability, VO2 max, your sleep quality, your recovery times from all these devices. The Whoop strap is very, very, very impressive. But, it can give you an idea on your training and what you're doing, and you match up all these things so you can, reach that peak potential where you're trying to go. So, the data allows you to fine tune your routines. Just like if I don't get enough sleep, I know things that I can do, things I don't need to do. Your VO2 max monitoring can help you understand your cardiovascular efficiency and adjust your workouts to improve your endurance. It's just like when I do heart rate training, I make sure I'm in zone one. And so I'm watching for that zone one training. Then how much I'm in zone two, how much zone two training I'm doing. Then on other days, I'm in zone 3 and 4 when I'm doing harder, you know, sprints and doing, different things like that. So, everything changes, but, you're able to monitor this and understand it so you can train more efficiently. The smart fitness trackers, I mean, they give you your heart rate, your sleep patterns, but then, it gives you a way to really make more, better informed training decisions. You have AI powered training apps like Peloton, Starva, or Strava, uh, MyFitnessPal, and other machine learning things to offer you, workout plans, nutrition guidance, and things of that nature, to be able to give you more. There's way more. I'm just naming off just a few that I had written down, but I mean, there's all kinds of AI powered training. You can even utilize AI to build, a training plan, but it's better to talk to a professional and understand more so about your height, weight, capabilities, and all these other things. That's why I put all these things in there so you understand yourself better. That's why the foundation of peak performance and everything I did, at the first part of it was all about self-evaluations, and you can continue to do them. But you've got, wearable EKG monitors. The Apple Watch has that. Cardio Mobile has a, heart rate monitoring activities to let you know potential issues, and it could let you know, I mean, even give you an idea if you're having a heart attack or having other issues, or like one time I was sitting somewhere and my heart rate just went way higher than normal because my resting heart rate's in the 50s and 60s, and it shot up to like 121, 125, something like that. And I mean, I'm just sitting there, and so I wasn't under any stress, and so it was hard to figure out what causes it, but it gave me a notification. So this stuff gives you ideas. you know, you can measure your cycle power, and you can run your run power as well. And you can also look at data-driven nutritional scales. You got stuff like NutriTrack that can, provide precise macronutrient breakdowns tailored to your dietary plans to fuel your workouts effectively. You have sport-specific motion sensors, ZEP and BLAST motion, things like that that can help you with baseball, golf, and other things. You got hydration monitoring devices, and there's so many of these out there. They're really nice. I mean, or you can, there's things you can put on you to be able to track that, and you're doing very much activity outside, especially if you're really getting hot. This is a good thing, because I can think of times where I would be out when it's really, really hot, and I really enjoy running when it's as hot as it can possibly be for some reason. I don't know why I like that, but I do. And even though I sweat so bad, it's hard for me to maintain hydration a lot of times like I need and have that fluid balance. But there's a device that, you can put on that will tell you when you need water, and so it can help track that. You need things like that. And then there's athletic recovery systems like Hyperspice and then Therabody that use targeted vibration and compression to enhance your blood flow, reduce soreness, and speed up recovery times. I mean, these are things that we all need. And so when we continue to look at these techniques, I mean, high level techniques to boost sustainability. And so when we look at these, again, we're working, we're wanting to be stronger. And so by breaking your training into cycles, you can create a balanced phases to work with your body and not against it. So when you start thinking about this stuff, again, we're training smarter. Think of professional runners. They master base building phases, power through speed phases, and embrace tapering periods to grow stronger while getting, avoiding burnout. It's like, if you can look up at just a basic marathon or ultra marathon training guide, it's crazy to see the volume you have to do to be able to do it at a high level. I mean, these people put in a lot of work to be able to do it, to get that, to stay in that zone one, to run all those hours, to get that base to be ready. I mean, this is, there's a lot of work involved there, and then there's, and now there's functional strength training. And they see, unlike normal weightlifting, you use real life movements, actions that mimic your everyday challenges. So it's not just about lifting weights, it's about building a foundation of strength, flexibility that prevents injury and sets you up for success. You can crush your goals, with exercises like kettlebell swings, the TRX suspension training. I mean, I've got a couple of those set up in my gyms at the house, and I mean, they really work. It's functional. These are functional things, and I utilize them to stretch and to do all kinds of things because they can really help you to prevent injuries and get those real life like motions without lifting, very heavy weights. And so, when you get to start doing this stuff, here's ways you can elevate your game. Well, the functional side of it, you do functional training, focuses on movements that you can create sustainable strength and mobility that increase it. Okay, it's going to increase your mobility and your strength over time. And look at things that are functional training. You can do progressive overload, which is gradually increasing resistance or intensity, which that's sustainable growth without overtraining and workout. That's the thing about it. You don't want to burn out. You want to keep improvements and be steady and balanced. Cross training. I do a lot of cross training. And it's incorporating, a variety of exercises, kettlebell swings, TRX, resistant bands, and other things that prevent overuse injuries. I pick out certain days, and that's what I do. I utilize tools like these. I've got everything set up to where I can do all these type of things, to use to functional cross training things to be able to keep you from overworking yourself, because you don't want to go in and just lift heavy, lift strong every single day. You've got to utilize and think about the functional long-term things, because you still got to build a baseline. I mean, my maintenance workout's probably 5 times, harder than most people's normal workout. I would imagine. I mean, have you ever seen my baseline? It's crazy just to preserve muscle and to keep my cardiovascular health. But it's things that are functional, things that I did and utilized over time. And so, remember, it could be consistent over intensity. I do a lot of high intensity stuff, but you got to remember to be consistent, because if you're doing it on a regular basis, you're just keeping everything balanced. You're not injuring yourself nearly as much, because intensity can do that. If you're jerking and you make one wrong move, you can do that. But, I do more of a controlled intensity when I do my high intensity stuff. But being consistent, you're going to make continual progress, and you'll be able to sustain it. You're not going to be able to sustain, doing a 12-week competition training workout. You're just not going to be able to sustain that over time, or look at something like Arnold's double split back from, that's a very popular. That's not sustainable over time. Because you're working out 2 times a day, and I mean, it's really serious. I love the workout, and I like doing it every so often, but man, your likelihood of injury is going to go up if you consistently do that. That's why we got to change our programs up. We got to look at the technology and recovery. Because there's different things like Theraguns, and there's different compression therapy devices like Normatec, and we got recovery boots. You got all these things that can help with your calves, can help with your legs, and help take that to the next level, because your precision therapy, they're not gadgets. They help in reducing muscle soreness. They help improve circulation and get your body ready to crush it, to be able to crush it and be able to do it and recover in the right way. But recovery doesn't start there. It doesn't stop there. I mean, we've got infrared saunas and flotation tanks. And I have a sauna. I'd like an infrared sauna. I mean, the flotation tank, absolutely. These are things going to help reset your body, help tackle your goals with renewed renewed energy, not injury. But, the point is, recovery is not a luxury, it's a necessity. We've got to be able to be sustainable in all these things, because if you go just beat the crap out of your body on a consistent basis, while you may become mentally stronger and be able to power through things, you are going to hurt yourself. You're eventually going to break it down to where if you're stopping and you're utilizing what we're talking about today, it's going to help you be able to make it. Using things like that cryo chamber, because when you look at recovery technology, the cryotherapy chambers, they accelerate muscle recovery and reduce inflammation. Your infrared saunas, they promote detoxification, they improve circulation. Flotation tanks, they reduce stress, they enhance relaxation through sensory, deprivation. The flotation tanks are great. I'd love to do that again. It's a interesting experience if you haven't done it. So very interesting experience. It's different for everybody, but when those lights go out, those lights are out. But we talked about compression therapy systems. They boost your blood flow and they speed up your recovery post exercise. And then your percussion precision massage devices, they target sore muscles and they alleviate tension. And I've got to do a better job on that because I've let myself get tight here recently, and I've been trying to work through some of those things as I'm training for a 24-hour race. But segment 4, area 4 here, we're going to look at mental conditioning and technology. This will be our final segment here today, and then we'll talk about a little bit about the sheet. It's going to have more information about what we talked about. But when we think about that, your mental conditioning, there's technology that can help. There's meditation apps, Headspace, which Headspace sponsors many of my podcasts, so I have to I definitely have to say good things about them. They sponsor many of my podcasts, and Calm, and then other neurofeedback devices such as Muse, which that's a headband that can help you build focus, manage stress, and improve mindfulness, which would be interesting to try. I'm going to try some of these things. See, some of these things I don't have, and I'm going to try them. And so just like with the PT test, I'm going to do the same thing here. We're going to try these out, and I'm going to give some reviews and see what, I'm going to offer some for sale as well. But when we look at mental conditioning, your visualization exercises. You got to be able to rehearse your performance, see what you're going to do, visualize everything. And the same thing with, that's your success in giving a speech and getting a job and getting whatever. You got to visualize where you're going. You got to see yourself where you're going to be. And these are backed by science because athletes increase their performance just like speakers do, just like business people do. When you visualize yourself, this practice also helps fine-tune your motor skills, improve your focus, and boost your confidence. Because if you can see yourself doing something, your confidence is going to be a lot higher. And so when you combine this with high-tech tools, these mental conditioning practices elevate an athlete from good to great. And so, we talked about visualization. You create vivid images of achieving goals. You can see your prime self. You can see these things. You got to be able to visualize it. You got to be able to see it. Another technique is positive self-talk, replacing those negative ideas and negative talk with positive affirmations that build confidence and resilience. Positive self-talk encourages motivation and helps you, bounce back because I've got a certain saying I say all the time. I'm not going to say on here because this is not a non-explicit podcast, but there is one that I say, and it's not to mean to be demeaning to anyone, but it's one that I say, and it's positive for me because it tells me not to be a weak person today. Don't be a weak person today. And I'm not going to say the phrase because I don't have to mark it explicit, but when we look at it, mindfulness and meditation, these are going to help you because all this recovery, your mental, you got to be mindful. You help reduce that anxiety and then cultivate things that are going to make you calm. That's critical for maintaining peak performance. And obviously, goal setting, being clear and specific, finding, providing something with pure, clear direction. I'm going to run this. It's like the other day, I was running, I wanted to, which I didn't realize it was a full mile and a half until I pre-measured on the maps and my watch is not calibrated right. But what happened is I kept thinking I was slower than I am. And so I ran a little bit harder, even though there's like, it's running, you run uphill, I mean, a significant amount of the time and then come back around the mile and a half. So it's really not a fair judgment on my speed, but I thought I was slower than I am. And then when I looked at the map, I realized the mile marker was back quite a bit further. And then I actually went a mile and a half in under 10 minutes, which is not blazing. And I wasn't just, trying to sprint, but I'd run a little bit harder because my goal was not to have that slower mile time that I thought I had until I actually measured it. So you have to watch some of these devices as well because they may not be calibrated just like they need to be, or for you. And then breathing exercises, you can, utilize breathing exercises. They get more oxygen to the brain. They help promote relaxation. They help you focus. And so as we look at the sustainable training, I mean, we look at the data-driven side of it. You can get data. It's very important. You can measure things. You can understand yourself a lot better. You look at functional training, progressive overload, doing all these things to be able to keep yourself from getting hurt and then having real life skills and real life things you can utilize there. I mean, real life methods. And then, obviously we look at the technology of recovery with the cryotherapy chambers, the saunas, etc. And then finally went through mental conditioning and technology. So all these things, will help you sustain your training long term, and work towards, getting that peak performance level that we all desire. But it's only, like I said, we went through it and you've decided already on where you're going to be at. Now we just got to keep growing and understanding these things. So I'm going to attach a sheet with this information. It'll be attached to the podcast. And anyway, I think that's it. Well, have a great day. This has been the Peak Performance Podcast with Brad Young, and should have a fantastic day.
With so many options, why choose Arizona State University?
For me, the only online option was ASU because of the quality. Their faculty was really involved with their students and care about your personal journey. The dedication to my personal development from my professors, that's been extremely valuable to me.
Earn your degree from the nation's most innovative university. Online. That's a degree better. Explore more than 350 plus undergraduate, graduate, and certificate programs at asuonline.asu.edu.